The Fat Controller's Railway has been a popular attraction with enthusiasts for many years. After having read the books and seen the television series, people from all over the world would flock to the island of Sodor for chances to ride behind the engines that called the railway their home and have their photos taken with them whenever they had a break in between trains. Thomas's branch line was no exception to this rule. Many people enjoyed riding along the line aboard Henrietta, Hannah, Daisy, Annie, and Clarabelle. They also enjoyed taking photos of the beautiful countryside and waving at familiar faces along the way. However, like any other railway, there was one thing that was a constant source of bother for the engines.
Trespassers!
Percy exclaimed at the branch line sheds one cool June night.
The very nerve of them! Care to elaborate, Percy?
Asked Toby, concerned.
When I was taking some fuel tankers up to the quarry this morning, a pair of kids thought it would be funny to stand in the middle of the line and wave their arms like scarecrows, blowing in the wind. I shuddered at the thought of what might have happened had my driver not stopped me in time.
Percy explained, feeling sick in the pit of his boiler.
That's the trouble with young people nowadays,
sighed Toby.
They think just because they've seen something being done in the media, they can get away with it in real life. Not too long ago, I had a similar incident happen to me with a couple of boys on skateboards. It's a lucky thing I wasn't due to leave for a few more minutes when one of them fell off and landed right in front of me.
I do remember hearing about that on the radio when I was at the junction picking up passengers from Rebecca's train, Daisy chimed in.
People tend to forget that engines can't stop on a 10-pence, especially if we've got a heavy train behind us. I remember hearing from Emily at the junction about an incident involving Gordon and 3 kids once. Poor engine was so shaken up, he didn't have it in him to pull the express for at least a couple weeks.
Added Percy.
No kidding.
Sympathized Thomas.
I know Sir Tom Man has tried to take measures to ensure the safety of the public, but it seems that even then, there's at least 1 or 2 individuals that think they're above the rules. You got a point there.
Agreed Toby.
But for now, let's get some sleep. We have a busy day ahead of us tomorrow.
Without another word, the 4 friends drifted off to sleep. Next morning, the Fat Controller came to see Thomas.
As you know, this week is the start of our annual Day Out with Thomas event.
He began.
I won't let you down, sir.
Thomas beamed.
That being said,
continued the Fat Controller,
I want you to take an enthusiast special from Nafford all the way to Farcross Station. There will be refreshments and a photo shoot held there, and another at Hackenbeck. And remember, no going at dangerous speeds. We want to make sure that our guests are treated to a smooth and safe ride. Not a problem, sir,
whistled Thomas. After his driver and her wife got him steamed up, he set off with Annie and Clarabelle to collect the passengers. As they began to board, Thomas's mind wandered back to his conversation he'd had with Toby, Daisy, and Percy the night before. With how popular these events were, they did tend to draw in large crowds, which was undeniably good for some of the railway's revenue. However, with every paying client, there was always a higher risk of trespassers being spotted along the line. "What's the matter, Thomas?" asked Annie. "You're usually not this quiet on the opening day of these events," added Clarabelle.
I'm sorry, you two. I'm just thinking about my talk with the others last night,
sighed Thomas. "Oh, whatever happens, we'll be behind you all the way, dearie," smiled Annie. "No pun intended, of course," giggled Clarabelle. Thomas smiled at this. He was grateful to have his faithful coaches with him for the journey ahead. Soon enough, the last door banged, the guard waved his green flag and blew his whistle. "Come on, Thomas! It's time to go!" Annie and Clarabelle called cheerfully.
"Do come along, we shan't be late. Do come along, we shan't be late,"
Thomas sang as he puffed out of the station toward his branch line. Things were going well as the trio made their way along the line. The rails hummed, the signals showed all clear, and the passengers were having a wonderful time. However, trouble was soon to come. A few months prior to the event, the Fat Controller and members of the Railway Board had organized some much-needed repairs to the tracks along the branch line and other areas of the railway. The old wooden sleepers were becoming worn from age and the elements. So it was decided by the board that they would be replaced with sleepers made of concrete. They would last longer, need replacing less frequently, and would be able to withstand the heavier trains following the increase in workload, especially on the main line. As a result, some of the old sleepers were left by the line side, waiting to be picked up and taken away to the recycling plant. Not too far from the Hackenbeck signal box was a small inn. Word of the Day Out with Thomas event had spread like wildfire, attracting a plethora of enthusiasts to the inn. One such enthusiast, a little boy named Noah, had been waiting impatiently for a chance to see his favorite hero from television and was thinking of a way to get his attention when the chance came. Meanwhile, Thomas arrived on time at Hackenbeck and smiled broadly as the passengers enjoyed their refreshments and had their pictures taken with him, Annie and Clarabelle. After what felt like ages, the passengers climbed back on board and the guard sounded his whistle again. "Off we go, Thomas," said his driver. "We'll soon be at the top station before you know it."
Must be on time. Must be on time,
whistled Thomas as he began to depart from the station. Having heard the whistle, Noah saw his chance. He darted from the inn, climbed over the fence, and stood on a pile of old sleepers close to the railway line, excited to finally see Thomas up close.
Thomas? It's Thomas!
Noah shouted eagerly, waving his arms.
"Cinders and ashes! Brakes, driver! Brakes!"
shouted Thomas. The driver quickly shut off steam and applied the brakes, bringing the train to a halt. Thomas hadn't been going fast, but the sound was still loud enough to be heard for a considerable distance. The driver and her wife got down from the cab and walked toward the front of their engine to speak to the child. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" scolded the driver.
I only wanted to meet Thomas.
Noah whimpered. "I can understand your enthusiasm, young man, but this isn't the way to go about it," added the fireman. "What you did isn't just dangerous, it's also illegal."
"You could have been seriously hurt or even worse,"
fumed Thomas. Noah's mother came running out of the inn toward the fence after having heard the noise Thomas's brakes had made and had seen her son being scolded by the crew. While the fireman went back into Thomas's cab, her wife walked Noah back up to the fence. "Is this your child, ma'am?" she asked. Yes, it is," answered Noah's mother. "Then you're aware of his recent instance of trespassing on railway property?" "Rest assured, ma'am, I will make sure he's dealt with for causing a disturbance," Noah's mother replied, giving a stern look toward her son. "Much appreciated, but please be aware that we can't have any more incidents like this one," the driver continued. "I'd hate to think what would have happened if your boy had been on the tracks and we hadn't been able to stop in time." Noah's face went pale hearing that. "I understand, madam," said Noah's mother. The driver thanked Noah's mother and then went back to Thomas's cab. "Are you all right overall?" she asked him.
"I'm shaking up, but I'll recover,"
sighed Thomas. "Let's get these passengers to the top station. We'll let you rest a while and have someone else take your return train," the driver's wife said with a soft smile.
"Thanks for that."
Thomas's smile gradually came back as he got underway once again. The rest of the journey went by without any further mishaps. After bringing his passengers to Farquhar, Thomas was moved into a siding to rest. An hour later, the Fat Controller arrived on board Percy to speak with him.
"I heard you had a bit of a fright today,"
he said, looking concerned.
"Yes, sir.
Replied Thomas.
A young boy tried getting too close to the tracks, all because he wanted to meet me. Your driver told me you were pretty shaken up by it as well. Am I correct?" "You're not wrong, sir,"
answered Thomas.
"I've made arrangements for you to do demonstration goods trains in the yards for a couple of days after you've had a chance to rest. Is that all right with you?"
asked the Fat Controller.
"Yes, it is, sir,"
said Thomas with a small smile.
"But what about that young boy?" "He's been barred from entering railway property without proper supervision,"
replied the Fat Controller.
"I know he was eager to meet you, but as your crew said, He could have been seriously hurt or even worse.
Thomas's smile faded away at the thought of what could have happened.
Please don't remind me of that, sir.
He sighed.
I'm very sorry, Thomas. I'll be back to check on you later. I have a few more phone calls I need to make.
The Fat Controller said, gently patting Thomas's buffer before joining the passengers at the station.
Are you going to be all right?
Asked Percy, worried for his friend.
I will be.
Thomas's smile slowly returned as he looked over at Percy.
I just need some time to myself. That's all I need to know.
Smiled Percy. Soon it was time for the passengers to return to Knapford. As Thomas watched Percy puff away with Annie and Clarabelle, his mind reflected back on the morning's events. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard the sound of a car pulling up nearby. His gaze shifted toward the figures approaching him. First was the Fat Controller, followed by Noah and his mother.
I believe someone has something to say to you.
The Fat Controller said, gesturing toward Noah.
Thomas, I'm very sorry for giving you and your crew such a scare.
Noah said sadly.
It's just, when I saw you on TV, you were my favorite engine, and I was very excited to finally meet you today.
I appreciate your apology, young man.
Replied Thomas.
But from here on out, I need you to remember this. Don't ever trespass on the railway again. Trains like myself aren't as loud as you think, and we can't exactly stop right away either. It can also do a lot of damage to the minds of both us engines and our crews.
Noah smiled up at Thomas.
I promise I'll make sure to be more careful around the railway.
He said.
I'll even let my friends know, so that they can stay safe too.
Much appreciated.
Smiled Thomas. The Fat Controller then escorted Noah and his mother back to his car and left to drive them home. As Thomas watched them leave, he started to feel better about himself, knowing he'd helped to make another young man aware of his surroundings.